A top player with Comancheros motorcycle gang and an Auckland lawyer have admitted laundering millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains. Lawyer Andrew Simpson was named for the first time today as he pleaded guilty at the High Court at Auckland. The 42-year-old was one of a dozen people swept up in raids that saw police seize millions of dollars in assets in April. And the gang's local 2IC has also pleaded guilty. Our reporter Anneke Smith was at court.
So in court at the weekly call-over in the High Court at Auckland, two of the people swept up in these raids were brought to the court for arraignment. So Andrew Simpson was one of them, the Auckland lawyer that was mentioned, and also the Comancheros Vice President of the Auckland chapter, Tyson Daniels. Simpson pleaded guilty to 13 charges of money laundering. He stood quite quietly and solemnly in the dock, and we actually heard that his wife was sitting in the public gallery for the arraignment. He pleaded guilty to each of the charges, and Justice Small actually remanded him on bail, but with a stern warning that a sentence of home detention for these charges was far from assured in his case. Interim name suppression that he had enjoyed until today had lapsed, and there wasn't a fresh application, so today is the first time that we were able to publicly identify him as one of the people charged in connection to these raids.
So basically he's revealed as this white-collar lawyer who's involved in money laundering.
Money laundering millions and millions of dollars, yes. Tyson Daniels was also brought to court for arraignment. He pleaded guilty to 9 charges of money laundering and a further charge of participating in an organised criminal group. So these two men will be brought back to court in February next year for sentencing.
Yeah, remind us what happened during these police raids, and when we're talking about money laundering, what was the money going into, do we know?
Those details have yet to be revealed in court, but it was a massive operation or sting at the time. People remember in April there was a flood of police news reports. They had executed search warrants at 10 Auckland properties as part of an operation called Operation Nova. They seized $4 million roughly worth of assets. This included 2 houses, 3 Range Rovers, fancy cars like a Rolls Royce, and 4 Harley Davidson motorcycles. Roughly a dozen people were arrested and charged, and this included the Comancheros president of Auckland, Pasilica Naufahu, and he and others have pleaded not guilty to charges that were laid against them, and they'll go to trial in September next year. That's set down for 8 weeks.
Okay, so we have been hearing a bit about this particular gang with various cases before the court, haven't we?
Yes, yeah. The Comancheros has come up in a number of court cases this year, and people would remember in a number of trials and news reports as well. Not to conflate them, but there have been, for instance, this year there was a big murder trial. 3 Comanchero members were jailed for life afterwards in July and August for the murder and attempted murder of Abraham Tu'uhiava and his wife Yolanda. People may remember that Mr. Tu'uhiava was a Patch Nomads gang member who was shot dead in an execution-style killing in a rural part of Mangere. And his wife Yolanda was also shot twice in the head and miraculously survived purely by playing dead and pretending that she was dead in the grass on the side of the road. We do know that a number of people that are cropping up in these cases were living in Australia before they were deported back to New Zealand after Section 501 of Australia's Migration Act was changed. And so these deportees, many will know, have been nicknamed the 501s, and we've seen and will continue to see them pop up in these cases.